Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on MatterPD in action, designing sustainability from the start. My name is Tess Konovich, and I'm the Scientific Marketing Manager here at Earthshift Global, and we're excited to walk you through some powerful methodologies that are often overlooked or not known about in the LCA community. Underspecification and Stochastic Multi-Attribute Analysis, or SMAA is how I will go further using it. And we will be demoing these methodologies in MatterPD by Earthshift Global, a software for product design. These tools help LCA practitioners support their clients, like product designers and early stage innovators, in making smarter, more sustainable choices before all of the details are locked in. And let me introduce my incredible teammates presenting today. We have Lisa Lauren, our CEO and a pioneer in sustainability and LCA, who will be introducing SMAA, Miguel Hernandez, a senior sustainability analyst here at Earthshift, who will explain the concept of underspecification. Amalia Soho, our director of software support and training, will walk us through a live demonstration of how these concepts come together in MatterPD. And Cesar Camus, our sustainability analyst, is here behind the scenes to help answer any questions you have throughout the session. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of this talk, but Cesar will be monitoring the chat if you need anything immediately. And for those of you who don't know us, welcome to Earthshift Global. We're a sustainability solutions provider with over 2 decades of experience helping organizations make better decisions through life cycle thinking. From global manufacturers to early stage innovators, our mission is to empower smarter, earlier environmental choices. That mission led us to develop MatterPD, an LCA software for product design. It's designed to specifically bring advanced methodologies like underspecification and SMAA into the early design phase. And our goal today is not only to introduce you to these two powerful tools, underspecification and SMAA, but show you in MatterPD how they can help you deliver faster, clearer insights to your clients, even with limited data availability, especially during the early design phase when up to 80% of a product's environmental impact is determined. And with that, Miguel, I would love if you would take it away with underspecification.
Thanks a lot, Tess. Okay, so let's start by talking about underspecification. So underspecification is an LCA methodology that allows us to model and to run an impact assessment when detailed information is not available for our system, either because we are very early in the design stage of the product, or because we are struggling with the data collection process. And how does it work? It works by helping us describe a very specific material or activity through a more generalized group of materials or activities, or as we like to call them, classes. And it also incorporates uncertainty in the analysis, since instead of analyzing a very specific data point, we are analyzing a group of data items. Underspecification incorporates uncertainty by using different probabilistic methods to evaluate potential outcomes of our impact assessment method, depending on the variability of the class that we are analyzing, right? So in essence, underspecification is a tool that helps us model and run impact assessment when we have limited data. And let's see graphical examples. We have a frying pan. If we were very specific, this frying pan could be described as a frying pan made of hot rolled stainless steel grade 316. That would be like the ideal description for a very specific data item to put into a model. However, if we are not totally certain about the material that we're going to use, we could also describe it as a stainless steel frying pan. Underspecification allows us to use this less specific definition of a material to build our model. So again, through underspecification, we can represent an inventory, either a material or an activity, through a more generalized class. So in order to use it, it is necessary to build some sort of hierarchical a structure that represents or describes materials depending on our level of certainty. In this case, just as an example, we put together a data matrix of 5 different levels to describe 9 different metals. So the important thing to note is that you need to have one level with the highest level of specificity, and that should be the level where you put your fully described or specified material, and one level with lowest level of specificity. That would be like your most general class. And then you can start playing with different class or groups that can describe your materials as you decrease the level of uncertainty that you have available, right? So let's focus on the last section of this data table, just as an example. So let's say that I'm designing, let's say, a new pipeline, and I'm evaluating 3 different potential materials: cold rolled sheet steel, galvanized sheet steel, and hot rolled sheet steel. If I'm not entirely sure of what type of sheet steel I'm going to use, I could describe all 3 materials as sheet steels. So that could be my level 4 class. If I don't know if I'm going to use sheet steel or any other type of steel, I could create another category called steel that groups all the different types of steel that I have available. And I could do this all the way down to just saying, I'm going to use a metal. And under specification allows me to play with these different classifications and to test different data points on each category to see how my result would be, and to include the uncertainty of the variability of the data. Next slide, test, please. So based on this, we can say that under specification addresses 2 of the key challenges in LCA: cost and credibility. Why it addresses credibility? Well, first of all, because it includes uncertainty in the analysis. As we all know, every single data point that is used in an LCA has some level of uncertainty, and we are including it with this methodology. And also, since we are analyzing different data points, we are also including that variability into the analysis. And secondly, it allows us to do a more comprehensive study, because instead of selecting one single data point as a proxy that could be biased, we are analyzing a group of materials. So we are sampling through a database and evaluating how the selection of different materials or different activities could affect my result. So at the end of the day, I'm covering a wider range of variables. And now, in terms of cost, in the majority of the cases, the cost of an LCA is driven by the amount of time invested in data collection. Through under specification, you can optimize the data collection process, because you can run an under-specified model based on the data that you have available, and then identify the main hotspots of your system and focus your efforts in terms of data collection on those hotspots. That way, you are going to refine the model and the data available in the areas that really matter in terms of the description of the environmental performance of any system. Can we go to the next slide, Tess, please? Thanks. So let's see another example. Let's say that I'm a designer. I'm on the early stages of a development of a new toaster, and I just know that my toaster has 9 different components, and that I have an idea, a vague idea of the materials that I want to use for each component. And I want to run an LCA because I want to minimize environmental impact of my product. So instead of running X number of tests with all the ideas or options that I have for each component, I can just use under specification and model my whole product based on generalized classes of materials. So for example, for the body, instead of modeling it as a polypropylene material or a polystyrene material, if that would be my alternative, I could just model it as a thermoplastic, because I know that I'm going to use a thermoplastic. I just don't know which type. I could do the exact same thing with the plug pins, for example. Instead of using brass or, I don't know, bronze, I could say I'm going to use a non-ferrous metal. And that way, again, I could build a preliminary model that could help me understand the main trends of the environmental performance of my system. And then after that, make decisions and optimize my data collection process and my design process. Next slide, test, please. Thank you. So a fully under-specified result may be too uncertain to use directly, but it is a very powerful tool for decision making and to optimize different processes. Again, I can optimize my data collection process, my design process, and even my testing process in order to meet whatever objective I have, either as a designer or as a LCA practitioner. Next slide, Tess, please. And finally, once again, under specification reduces data collection burdens, but introduces uncertainty. That's true. But theory shows, as it can be seen in this slide, that on more than 90% of the cases, a fully specified result is within the interval of confidence that is set by the under-specified assessment. So you're not just doing an analysis, a random analysis, you are setting the boundaries, some sort of boundaries for your result. And based on that, you can start making decisions in order to refine your data, refine your model, and get a more accurate result at the end of the day. Thanks, Tess.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. And now we're going to move on to SMAA, or Stochastic Multi-Attribute Analysis, which is presented by Lisa.
Thanks, Tess. Thanks, Miguel. Just back on under specification for just 1 second. I want to thank the folks at MIT, Elsa Olivetti, Jeremy Gregory, Randy Kirchain, and their group for developing this method. And you can read more about it. They've got some published papers on it. And one of the reasons why we introduced it in a design tool is because sometimes it's not about data collection, right? Sometimes it's about the design itself. And if you find that something that you've underspecified, say the thermoplasts in that toaster model, if you find that it doesn't make a difference to the overall environmental impact, that particular choice, well, then you can use all the rest of your design principles, cost, durability, all those other principles to choose between those, your thermoplasts. If it makes a difference, now you have the leverage to really make some change to reduce those impacts, that 80% of the impacts that are locked in, you can reduce them at that early stage. All right, let's get back to SMAA. So stochastic multi-attribute analysis. This methodology came from the design decision science space. Valentina Prado actually brought it from decision science into LCA. Why? Because folks who don't really understand environmental impacts and what's the difference between eutrophication and acidification and which is more important, they can't handle trade-offs very well, right? They need a single score, but they need a single score that's going to be really effective for them. And it doesn't rely on some group of people's weighting system. And to be honest with you, we don't know what's going to be the most important thing for the future, for our future. What's going to change life as we know it? If we overheat the planet, is that going to be the big change? If we kill all the pollinators, is that going to be the big change for us? Or if we shift resources from one place to another and cause a nuclear war, is that really going to be the big thing? We don't know. And so in order to solve all this, we can go to the next slide, we apply stochastic multi-attribute analysis. So we're balancing trade-offs. We're saying, okay, we don't know what value system is the right one because we just don't know what the future is going to be. But we need to make a decision. We need to make a choice between product A and product B. So how do we do that in a way that is scientific and provides us good, solid decision making? Let's go to the next one. So the first thing we want to do is understand, is there really a difference, right? If I'm going to look at, if I'm going to compare two things and there's really not a difference, then why am I using that indicator to tell me there's a difference? If on the left-hand graph, you'll see that the single crystal silicon has a little less impact than the multi-crystal silicon if you look at just the mean, right? But if you look at the uncertainty across that, it's virtually the same space. They're virtually indistinguishable, right? And so I wouldn't use that indicator, water depletion, I wouldn't use that indicator to choose between those two. Whereas if I'm looking at CAD-TEL versus multi-crystal silicon, yes, absolutely, I want to use water depletion. If I look at freshwater eutrophication, all 5 of these choices are basically indistinguishable. So let's not make a decision based on a single point, if you will, in freshwater eutrophication. So this is the first thing that we do in stochastic multi-attribute analysis, is we narrow down, okay, how can I compare these things? Are they comparable? Are there differences? And which categories are they different in? That's the first step. Let's go to the next slide and talk about, this is the same thing, actually there's one more thing here, that sometimes you only have a partial preference, and sometimes you have a full preference. And so we're going to look at a Monte Carlo analysis, and we're going to look at these step by step to see where we have indifference, partial preference, and complete preference. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now what we can see is if I then do my weighting, I can do the weighting. I first throw out the ones that have no preference, right? And then, or have no, they're indistinguishable. And then I find, where do I have preference? If I have a full preference, right, then I know that that product in comparison with the other one is ranked higher in that particular category. So I can look at all these comparisons and then stochastically say, okay, in this run, I care more about climate change, right? So I'm going to do climate change is the most important. We don't care about anything else. The next one I might say, well, water scarcity is the most important thing. And I don't care about climate change, I don't care. The next one I might say, okay, climate change, water scarcity, human health, I want them all to be equal. So stochastically, through the Monte Carlo analysis, I'm also varying the weights. The result then is, what is the probability that each of my alternatives is ranked first? So my alternatives here, A, B, and C, the bluish color, the orangish color, and the greenish color, I can see that to be ranked 1, to be the best, that A, the alternative A, is most likely, well, maybe not most likely, it's a little over 45% likely to be the best. Whereas B and C, less likely to be ranked the best. Now, if I'm choosing between A and C, they might be close enough that I say either one is okay, right? But let's not use B. It's a decision-making tool that enables a designer who's always making decisions based on multiple things to be able to grasp the environmental impact, give them a kind of a single score, because we use the ranking of 1 as our single score to see, okay, which one should I choose? So here, 1 would be 45%, 2 would be about 20%, and 3 would be about 30%, right? So that would be my score, if you will. Let's go to the next one. So here we go, and again, a different one. Here we're looking at 11 impact categories and their uncertainties, all the possible weights with no particular preference. And here the cottonseed oil appears to be the best compromise with a 76% likelihood. Now, again, sometimes you're going to end up still with trade-offs with, two things, 50%, roughly 50% likely to be ranked as number 1. Then you use all the rest of your engineering principles to make your decision. But when you have a rank like this, 76%, well, now you have an idea of which one to choose. Let's go ahead and go to the next one.
Yeah.
So how do you actually use this? And if you click a few times, Tess. So we're capturing real world uncertainty and in underspecification, right? And the designer doesn't have to manually test all the different design scenarios they might consider. So it's actually faster to set up. We've had students at Dartmouth, design students, use this tool and other tools, and they find that it's much faster to design. Not only can you design much earlier in your decision process, but you can model it much quicker when you use this type of technique. Stochastic multi-attribute assessment allows us to choose what's the probability of lowest impact. If we look at the graph below, A has got much higher probability of having lowest impact. Move forward, make your decision, and move on. I think that's it.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. That was excellent. Thank you, Miguel and Lisa, for introducing these topics. And now we're going to move on to a demonstration with Amalia. And now, Amalia, would you like me to share the next slide, or are you ready to share the demo?
If you want to put the next slide, please. Okay, so this is how we're going to show how it's the MatterPD build. This is just a facet example. We have our project. In our project, we have our products, and then in our products, we're going to have materials, but also manufacturing, transport, use, end of life. And for each material, we can add some components. And it's very important to know in material and in manufacturing, transport, and end of life is where we are going to put input data from eGoInvent.
Okay, with that, I will stop sharing and I'll let you take over, Amalia.
Okay, thank you. So, and before I start the demo, I want to show you where you can find some videos so that you can learn by yourself. We're going to give here a short example of how to use it, but you can always go to our webpage, MatterPD, and in MatterPD, you can register for a free demo. And if you go to resources, you will find several set of demos, like from the basics and some several tutorials. If you go to basics, we have a furniture example. I'm just going to show you a snapshot of this. So this is what we're going to see through today. This is a bench that it's made out of wood and it has some yarn. We also use some sandpaper, we use glue, and for the manufacturing, we use electricity for sewing, for drilling. For transport, you use a truck, and then we finally have some remainings that from the processing the wood, and those we are taking them to a landfill. So if you're interested, you can just look at the videos and everything is shown here step by step. Now I'm going to our MatterPD. So when you register for your MatterPD license, you get something like this, and you're going to start creating projects. So you just need to click in new project, and you can have projects of furniture or projects of lighting, projects of plastics, etc. Here we have one new project called furniture, and within the projects, we have our products. So in this case, we created two benches, one which is the baseline, the wood and textile bench with a cotton yard, and then another one with jute. It's all preloaded already. I'm going to show it here. So if you go to wood and textile bench, you can see that we have materials, and then we have the other product life cycle stages like manufacturing, transportation, end of life. Let's start with the materials. In the materials, when we start using, we just go insert from library. And when you insert something from library, you have two options at the beginning, EquiInvent and my EquiInvent. The difference is EquiInvent, you can have the whole data set of EquiInvent. The whole data set, sorry. And my EquiInvent is once you select some processes from EquiInvent, they are already in your library. So let's say, for example, that I want to search for a wood. Then I will have several results, more than 100 results. And then maybe I want to filter by geography. When I search by geography, I have here in black the ones that we have available as wood. And in gray are the countries that, or the regions that are there, but are not available for this product. So I can go for the region of Canada, Quebec, and it's going to filter that specific geography. Then if I go, if I pass my cursor in each one of the names, it's going to tell me what it's about, so I can select the one that is better for my process. If I want one of them in my process, I just click here. As you can see it's added here in selected processes, and then I will add it to my process. Now, if I don't want to click into EquiInvent, but I want to click to search into my EquiInvent, it's going to tell me the data sets that I have already downloaded, so they're available for me. And here are the products that I have already used for my project. I'm going to come back. So for this section, I added wood pieces, I added cotton, I added glue, and I added sandpaper. Each one of them has its specificity. For example, for wood pieces, as you can see, I added one piece, but I didn't know which type of wood I wanted to use. So I went to underspecification, and then I searched for several woods. I found 4 of them that might fit my project, so I added the 4 of them. And the process is exactly the same. You create a new set. In this case, it was wood, and I inserted the wood from the library. Once that I had my underspecification, I need to double check that everyone that I chose have the same unit. In this case is cubic meters. So I'm going to add the unit name here. It's cubic meters. So that when I go to my bill of materials and I want to go into my wood pieces, I just create my process and I can pull my wood from the underspecification set. The other products that I added were cotton, and this was just a commodity that I chose from EquiInvent. The glue, it was also just a commodity, but then when there are some components that you do not have in EquiInvent, for example, the sandpaper, then I added as a component. So it was not inserted from the library, it was not under specification set, it was a new component. In this case, I needed to make a research of how the sand is made, and I added the several components here. Once you have your material, then you're okay to add the manufacturing, the transportation, the end of life. If there's something like an electric component that it's going to use electricity along its life cycle, you can add from the library some electricity. Okay, let's go to the results. So my first result that I'm going to look at is the contribution analysis. So how, which type of results am I getting from analyzing my bench. As you can see, we don't have one single point, but we have a range of them. Why is this? Because every data set in lifecycle assessment has some uncertainty inside. So this is reflected in the results. So this bench, the medium, it's 4.6, but 50% of our results are between 4.5 and 4.9, and 90% of our results are between 4.2 and 5.4. Every time that we run the results, we run it with Monte Carlo, so there's no choice of getting only one result. We always have at least 100 results, but we can go also for 500 or 1,000. We have results on global warming, but we can also switch to cumulative energy demand or water use, for example, or some other categories like ecosystem quality, human health, or natural resources. Let's go back to global warming, and here I can delve in to see my other results. Okay, these are the results for components and materials, and then I have them separate from the final product lifecycle. So I know that I need to focus on my materials more than, let's say, the transport or use and end of life. I'm going to keep opening. Okay, now here's something important. I see that my yarn, my cotton yarn, it's really the main issue here. If I go to the good pieces, I can keep opening. And here I see that the 4 types of wood that I chose, yes, they're kind of different, but they're not very different between each other. So I don't need to spend a lot of time searching into each one of those, but I need to focus on my cotton yarn. So in this case, what we did is go back to the bench that we created at first, and here we can just copy. We're going to create one copy. I'm not going to create it right now, but here's where you can copy. You can copy linked copy or unlinked copy. When you click on linked copy, it's going to create exactly same model with the same uncertainty data, so that the only thing that is going to change is, in this case, the cotton yarn for youth yarn. So once that you created a new model, you're going to erase the cotton yarn and add the youth yarn. We're going to run it, and I'm going to skip it just to show you the results of the yarn. So once that we remove the cotton yarn and added a youth yarn, we see that the range is, it was in the range of 4 kilograms of CO2, and now it's in the range of 2.5, and the cotton yarn, sorry, the youth yarn has a much lesser environmental impact than cotton. So if I want to make a change, I know where to start. There are other results that I can get from here. So the other results is the underspecification set. And this is so I know how much uncertainty is causing my the underspecification datasets. And here I can see that the wood, it's only causing about 28% of the uncertainty in my data. I only use wood over here, but if I had several underspecification sets, they will be showing here. For example, I could also have added electricity or the different types of yarn. Another result that I can get is the overall comparison analysis. This is similar to what Lisa was explaining. So I can have my cotton bench and my jute bench, and I'm going to compare them. But when I am comparing them, I always use the uncertainty data. So this means that although it seems like the yarn bench is better, it's better 93% of the runs, but there may be cases where the cotton yarn bench is better. So this is reflected in the overall comparison analysis. And finally, we can have also a multi-indicator comparison analysis where we can compare my wood textile bench against the jute. Here I need to specify which is my baseline, and then it's going to calculate, and it's going to show me, I have it over here also. So it's going to show me a comparison between my baseline and the new product. In this case, the comparison between the bench with cotton yarn and with jute. And here the comparison is if it's higher, it means that the product has higher environmental impacts than the other one. In this case, we can see that the wood with cotton has higher environmental impacts than the one with jute. So in a nutshell, this is the how MatterPD works. So it's very much a thought for product design. We can see the materials, the other life cycle stages. It's easy to understand what part goes where and how to get the basic results, and especially when we need to really change one of our materials, and we always considering uncertainty data. Okay, so Tess, I'll pass it to you again.
Thank you, Amalia. I'm going perfect. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, thank you, Amalia. That was excellent. I love seeing MatterPD live. And if you are ready to dive in, so now that you've seen how MatterPD works and the power of underspecification and SMAA, we'd like to invite you to explore and experience it firsthand. We've launched a brand new, and why don't I click play? There we go. We've launched a brand new landing page that has everything you need to get started quickly and easily. You can sign up for a free 14-day trial, no credit card required. So you can try out all of the features risk-free. And then oh, we also offer walkthrough videos and tutorials to help guide you through the platform. Plus, we have special academic pricing for students and educators if you're on the call today. Be sure to visit the landing page, explore these resources, and see how MatterPD can help you make smarter, more sustainable product design decisions earlier in your process. And so we have the link to the website here, and then we have all of our contact information here from everyone who presented today. So I'll leave that up for a second before I stop sharing my screen, and we'll move into questions. Great, and all of my panelists already have their screens on and ready to go. So I will start with the Q&A. Okay, we have 3 anonymous attendee questions. So the first is, for underspecification, is there a way to understand the confidence interval when presenting underspecified LCAs with underspecified info?
And the answer is yes. If you consider that last graph that Amalia was showing, and maybe you could show it again, Amalia, the comparison, not the overall comparison, but the comparison with all the indicators. You'll see that we've got we have the variability shown. And so you can see that it's not confident, right, for the human health, that in fact it goes across zero, and in some cases it's better than the cotton is better, in some cases the jute is better. But if you look at most of the other categories, it's basically you've got above a 95% confidence interval, because that entire bar, including the whiskers, is above zero. So you've got essentially a 95% confidence that your jute is better. I hope that answered your question. If not, please put more detail in your question.
Thank you, Lisa. The next question is uncertainty methodology lowers the cost in labor time, but could it also lower the cost of access to useful information? As in, could lower detailed data libraries be cheaper to use?
That's a good question, except that you need the entire information from each of those processes in order to do the underspecification. So I can't create some new process that's an average, because it doesn't work that way, right? We're going across all of it. And what that allows us to do is understand trade-offs as well, right? Because in some categories we may have a distinct difference, but in other categories it may either even go the other way, or it may be uncertain. So it's important to keep all of that underlying data. But it's a good question, and I don't have a true answer for you. We'll have to think about it and look into that. Great question.
Thank you, Lisa. This next question is directed at Amalia, although I welcome anyone else to chime in too. When we have an underspecification set with 4 materials, the attendee is wondering whether the uncertainty is shown based on the impact of the specific amount needed for each selected material, in this case different types of wood, or if the software takes all materials into account. The attendee just wants to make sure that there's no risk of double counting.
Okay, thank you for your questions. So when we are running, we have a unspecific amount of material, in this case wood, that is needed for the bench. So, and it's the same cubic meters for any type of wood. Now, how it works, we run through Monte Carlo, so we are running at least 100 times. So each time that it's going to run, it's going to select one of the underspecification material, and then another one, and then another one. It's going to show randomly, and that's that's how it's going to be calculated. So it's not going to be double counting. Each time that it's going to run it, it's going to run with a different data set, and then it's all going to show as one underspecification range.
Thank you, Amalia. I had a few more questions messaged in. Is underspecification a tool that can be used just by LCA practitioners, or can it be used by R&D and design teams?
It can be used by R&D and design teams, as Lisa was saying during the presentation. It is super valuable for design teams, because when you are early on your design process, you can make decisions that can really affect the environmental performance of your system or your product. So actually, when we talk about underspecification, we really encourage our clients and people we talk to use it when you're doing anticipatory LCA or early designs.
Thanks, Miguel. I'm actually really interested in this next question. Can underspecification be applied in studies that are intended to be ISO reviewed? And how does that work?
That's a great question. I think it can be used, and Lisa, please jump in if needed. It can be used in the preliminary stages of the studies, so you can understand where your hotspots are and where you need to make model refinement or data refinement. Underspecification can help you understand your cutoff. So if, for example, in that early analysis, you see that, I don't know, certain material is below your cutoff, you don't need to worry about it. So you can just go with the assumptions you made and follow along. But there are going to be some specific life cycle phases and or materials that need to be fully specified in order to be accurate and meet the ISO standard.
Yeah, it really depends on your goal and scope, right? If your goal is to show that product A is better than product B, right? Then and it doesn't matter what unspecified, even if it's a big part of your model, but you show that product A is always better than product B across all of them, then there's no reason you can't use that in your full LCA. And certainly, like Miguel said, you're modeling a piece of furniture and you've underspecified the screws, and it turns out that they're such a small part that they're underneath the cutoff. Well, then it doesn't matter either. But in any case, you have to document it. You have to say, okay, here's the set that I analyzed, and these are the results with that set.
Thank you, Lisa. We have another question from Ralph. Could the tool show the additional impact incurred by the calculations themselves? In most cases, this will be negligible, but in cases of smaller products like toothpaste packaging, this could be significant. This question seems particularly relevant against the context of heightened interest in the environmental footprint of computing, data centers, and AI.
Cesar, can you answer that one?
You can help me with this one, Lisa. And
Yeah. Yeah. So Cesar has actually been doing LCA of MatterPD to understand what the impacts of these calculations are. And it's difficult because it's hard to get data, but we're working on it. And that's a good thing. It would be really interesting for us to add that into the tool to say, this calculation took so many greenhouse gas, incurred so many greenhouse gas emissions and used so much water. That would be really interesting, wouldn't it? Probably not for next year, but maybe in a few years we can add that.
And I want to jump in. So regarding that question, you can specify as much as you want and as you can. It all depends on all the data that you get. So for example, for the toothpaste, you can cut the toothpaste and you can have the packaging and you can have the other packaging. So it depends on how much information you get. And if you have all of that information, of course, the software can handle that. You just need which is the amount that you're using.
Well, thanks, team. We had a group answer there. Another question we had was, can you do underspecification in SMAA with any other tools?
Kind of. You can do both of them with Python. So if you can program in Python, you're all set. To do, as long as your tool will do a full Monte Carlo analysis, you can do it in a limited way. The one thing that you, with all the tools that I know of, other than MatterPD and Brightway, is you can only do a Monte Carlo analysis comparison with only two. You can only do it with two processes at the same time. And so if you want to add three, then you lose correlation with those tools. So you can only do two at a time, first of all. And second of all, almost always you have to pull it out of the tool that you're using and run a further Monte Carlo analysis, either using Crystal Ball or just doing it kind of a manual way in Excel, outside of the tool. So the answer is kind of, but it's hard. Whereas it may be just easier to just pop it into MatterPD and run it there.
So we have 3 more questions, which I think we'll have time for, but if anyone else has any final thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave them now and we'll get to them. So the first of those final 3, or maybe more, when presenting the results, why does MatterPD show a range and not just one value?
I'll answer that one too. because I designed it in. And the reason I designed it in is because there is uncertainty in our results. And always there's uncertainty in our results. If you share a comparison of product A and product B again, those two chairs, for example, let's say that the cotton versus the jute had an overlap in the uncertainty. So there really was only a 50 or maybe let's say a 70%, 60 or 70% probability that one was better than the other. If you look at it on a single score basis, you're going to say, oh, the jute's better. And you should make your decision on that, and you should tell the world, you can tell the world that your jute chair is better than your competition using the cotton, right? But when in actuality, because of the data uncertainty underlying it, you only have that 70% probability. Well, if your decision maker knows there's only a 60 or 70% probability it's better, they may not say to the world, hey, we're better, because next year we get better data, it may flip, right? So you need to let decision makers make decisions based on what's there, what's real. We may all say, we want to know if it's going to rain tomorrow, right? Well, yeah, okay, I've got a model that says it's probably going to rain. So, oh, yes, it's going to rain. Well, then it doesn't, or vice versa, right? You need to know that probability in order to make a good decision. If you're planning a wedding and there's a 40% chance of rain, you're going to plan differently than if someone tells you, oh, it's absolutely not going to rain. So that's why we have uncertainty, because it helps us make better decisions. Is it always right? Is there so much uncertainty that maybe we can't make decisions? Yeah. And that's the way it is, right? That when they were predicting hurricanes 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I think it was, they were off. They were off by 90 miles in one case, and they evacuated the wrong city. Did that mean they shouldn't have been predicting where hurricanes were going to be? No. We use this uncertainty. We make our decisions based on the results. And then we find out more later, right? We keep going with our LCA. We keep getting better and better and getting better and better data, and we learn more, and we make better decisions as we go along. But we have to make decisions based on the best information we have right now, and that includes the uncertainty.
Thank you, Lisa.
Sorry for my soapbox.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do we have access to the complete EcoInvent datasets, and how do we select which ones to use in MatterPD?
Yes, you have access to all of them, but with the basic license, you can only use 300. And the 300 that you use are the first 300 that you pick, right, and put in your models. If you need more, you can buy the full license, and then you can have access to all of them. How do you choose? You have to look at the descriptions that are available in MatterPD and decide which one is the most appropriate one to use. And I wish I could tell you a better answer than that, but that's the best answer I have right now.
Yeah, and also once that you select one of those data sets, you can use it infinite number of times. And most of the projects do not use more than 100 data sets. So it's enough for almost any project.
Thank you, Amalia. Okay, this will be our last question. Is MatterPD commercially available, and are academic licenses available?
Yes, and yes. The basic license is $99 a month. We have to charge for 3 months up front because we have to pay for the EcoInvent license, so that you have that access to the 300 data sets. But other than the 3 months, that's all you're mandated to have. So if you choose to end your license at the end of 3 months and move on and do something different, you can. The academic license, remind me, Amalia, what's the academic License cost?
Yeah, it's $750 for one semester and $1,250 for 1 year.
And that's for your whole class. So
Yeah.
it's not per user, that's for your whole class.
Thank you. And I also pasted the link in the chat. And if you click on that link, you can also explore the landing page that I showed you earlier. But I just wanted to thank my team for presenting on underspecification, SMAA, and the demo MatterPD. I know a lot about it, but I also am taking away some new information. I hope you all learned something too. This recording will be made available on our YouTube in the near future, and I hope to see you all at the next Brown Bag webinar. Thank you.